Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I want to talk a little bit about housing and condos versus other kinds of developments tonight. My guest is Ian Jones. He is the president and founder at an organization called the BGI Group. They've got, I think, 23 million square feet under development, or at least developed, 50 plus years of construction and development of large scale real estate projects in Canada and the United States. And he told me that he got out of condos 8 or 9 years ago, and he's very glad that he did because he saw the condo crash that we're currently in coming. Interesting conversation tonight with Ian Jones. Ian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Brian, for having me.
My pleasure. So why did you think that you saw something coming in condos that was bad?
Well, I've been through 4 recessions in the 50 plus years that I've been in the business. And I went through much the same thing in 1992 because I was developing condos in the GTA and specifically in Milton. And we were doing 155 suites, 16-story in Milton. And the rates went up fast, and we were carrying 15% construction loan. So and that we could do, but because you sort of planned for higher rates, but we had 130 firm sales, and 100 of them walked from their deals and did not close.
100 of 130 of your sales walked from the sales and didn't close.
Yes.
And what did you do? Did you sue them all or what?
No, it wasn't worth the bother, frankly. But they did forfeit their deposits. And we went through all sorts of things, with incentives and free condo fees and trips to London, and a few other things. And then we ended up bringing in a US auction house. The auction, them off at ridiculously low prices. And, there wasn't any profit, but thankfully we didn't, go bankrupt at all. Just squeaked through that particular project because we set up a separate cell for each project. So it was insulated from everything else. But it was a challenge. So, when the last 10 years started, I say, here it comes again, but there were just too many pre-sale investors involved in the market. And that's the ones that are going to walk away.
So I've heard about, lots of assignment sales, and I've heard about, a few people not showing up and defaulting on their purchase agreements, but not 100 of 130. Do you think it's going to get as bad as what you described?
Yes, I do. And mainly as what was it, a year ago, the crane count was 250 cranes. And that is condos that are going to be finished and closed over the next 18 to 24 months. And a lot of them, and I mean a lot, have been trying to assign their deals because that was the game. They were tying them up with a deposit and flipping them and making 20% in a year. So that stopped completely. There are no assignment deals being taken up. So they are faced with the closings in the next 18 months. And most of them were in there, not so much for the rentals, because they were underwater from even at 3% mortgages. But it was the capital appreciation that they were all in there for. And that's gone. There is no capital appreciation.
There's no capital appreciation anymore.
None at all.
And if you said there was 250 cranes, a year ago, so you're saying that it's going to even get worse? The supply is going to go up even more in the next little while?
For sure. Yeah, the completions and closings. You just look at the skyline, you see all those half-built condos, 20-story, 40-story building. That's the ones where the developers are pretty nervous. Like the guys with the deep pockets, the big guys, they'll weather it through because their condo deals in the last 5 years were really good, and they did close. But these everybody and his brother figured they were a developer. So, like a lot of these that are going up right now, they've got investors that, somebody mentioned to me they were about 70% of the sales in these buildings, not all of them. And those are the investors that are faced with, the pretty bad situations coming up to a closing. They'll lose their 200 grand deposit and potentially be sued. And just one last thing, here's the typical example of what could happen. Because a lot of them were on HELOCs. They borrow money and put the deposits down. Well, one of the ones that walked from a deal, the developer not only kept a deposit, they put the registered on title of their family home, what's called a lis pendens, certificate of pending litigation, which means I'm not suing you today, but watch out a year from now when I come calling.
And if that happens, what's the result? You can't sell your house?
They can't sell the house, and it goes to court. If the developer gets enough of a judgment, it can trigger a power of sale, and whatever he resells these condos at, that's what he can end up getting, and lost interest and new real estate commission. It's pretty ugly what can happen.
So what do you think developers should do in this situation? Should they be suing people, or should they putting these notices on title that there's pending litigation, or what do you think the developers should do that have got all these completions coming up?
Well, it's hard to say, because every one of the 250 projects is different, but the weaker developers, if they don't cover themselves with what I just described, they'll go into receivership. And quite a few have started getting into receivership already. I don't want to name any, but there's a lot of developers getting into receivership right now, and well, there'll be a lot more.
Now, what about these investors that have invested in pre-construction condos that are faced with not having the funds to close the condos that they bought? They put down, as you said, $200,000 in deposits. They could have qualified with interest rates where they were, but can't qualify for the mortgages with the interest rates where they are. And sometimes they can't get the appraisal above the amount of the mortgage that they had before, because the values have come down. So what do you recommend some of these pre-construction condo investors, buyers, need to do today?
Well, they've been trying to do it, sign the paper, and there's no takers. Like nobody in their right mind is going to take assignment of a condo that's coming up to a closing in the next year or so.
No one in their right mind is going to take an assignment.
Right. Because there's no capital appreciation in taking that assignment, unless the person, the pre-sale was from 2 or 3 years ago, and it is a couple of $100,000 less than it is today, and they walk from the deposit. Then that's the safety margin that somebody taking an assignment deal. But they're paranoid, because these for the most part weren't sophisticated investors. These were people just putting HELOCs on their homes and saying, "This is great. We can make $1 million here in 2 years."
Not everyone knows what a HELOC is. Can you tell everyone what that is?
Home equity line of credit.
So they're effectively borrowing against their own home to invest in pre-construction condos that are now underwater. They're going to lose their deposit, and sometimes they're going to lose some of the money in that HELOC.
Yeah, and the HELOC, if it goes into default, I mean, the bank's sitting there saying, you need to pay it down or pay it off. So that can trigger a power of sale.
Now, you've described what's happening in condos. Is this just the condo market, or is it going to impact other parts of the residential real estate market?
Well, there were pre-sales in single-family homes too. I mean, they're $1.5 million to 2 million. So you had lesser investors, and more first-time buyers. But the first-time buyers are running into the similar problem, because they're faced with 7% mortgages, and the 2% on top of it is a stress test, which is still in place. So they're coming along. When they started it was at 2%. But the closing coming up is still up there at even 5% plus the 2% at $1.5 million.
So do you think this is going to impact single family homes?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So are we going to have a depreciation in the overall real estate market?
Well, that's the thing that I don't think anybody's got the answer for, including myself. It would be pure guess. The prices seem to be holding, but there's nothing moving. I mean, sure, you get the realtor articles that things are looking good, but there isn't really that much movement in sales of anything. And now that the trajectory, the interest rates are starting to come down, people are getting emboldened, so they will go out and close deals if they can manage from their parents or whatever. So you will see some movement in, first-time buyers that want to actually get in on real estate and live in the place. But the investors are, they're gone for the hills.
Investors have gone for the hills.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting in the real estate market in the next little while.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think that we are clearly in a condo crash, and I think that the supply will go up, and such that it's going to take a while to work through the supply. But also, I think the other impact is that developers have put a whole bunch of other projects on hold. And so we may have oversupply for a little while, and then we may go the other way and have lack of supply because of lack of building. So it, could be a seesaw in what's going on. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back with Ian Jones, the president of a real estate development company called BGI Group. That's got 50 years of experience in the real estate business. And we're going to talk about what he does invest in, if not condos today. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I'm chatting tonight with Ian Jones. He is the president of a real estate development company, BGI Group. He's done over 23 million square feet of development, over $9 billion of development. Is that true, sir?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic.
That's not all as my company. My company's been around since 1980. The 17 years before that, I worked for, the big general contractors, Subway, etc. So, but, I was in one of the leading managerial parts. But most of it is since, 1980.
So you're not doing condos, I understand, and you've got a website called My Joy Living, and you're talking about something called compassionate capitalism. Tell me about My Joy Living and compassionate capitalism, if you could.
Okay. Well, developers don't like to stand still, but for over 40 years, I've been a for-profit developer, and there was a bit of a catalyst about 8 years ago that made me change to a not-for-profit developer. And again, it was timely, because along comes all these skyrocketing rents, the 10-year waiting lists, et cetera. And, when I had this catalyst, I said, look, I've been in the business for over 50 years. I'm going to try and do something about this. And that is what you just described, myjoyliving.com.
And what is it? What is My Joy Living?
It's affordable rental. The buildings, I've capped them at 9-story because if you go to 10, the tall buildings regs kick in, make the building more expensive, put the rents up. So it's aimed at, it's a hybrid of an apartment rental, not condo, rental apartment building, independent living, and a boutique hotel. You blend all of that together, and it's the joy concept. And basically, what it is, it's from $1,300 a month. And I'm holding that, even if it means giving up some profit. I'm still holding that, and it's most comparable to independent living, not a care model. This is a wellness model, and it's designed for 55 to 75. Because boomers, and I'm in the leading edge, they're more active, they're healthier, etc., etc. So that's what the model is, and in the last 12 months, we've contracted 10 of these projects, and each project is 2 buildings. And it's Ontario, PEI, Newfoundland, and even in the States, because we were active there, before. So it's a model that what it does is it, because of that whole blend and everything, the numbers work. It's not a normal apartment building, which a lot of those numbers don't work these days because of the cost of construction and the level of the rents. But what it does is we source the sites, we take them through the approvals. We've done it many times. Goes through glacially or otherwise, my favorite subject. And then we build it, we fill it, we stabilize it, and then we turn it over to faith-based communities who own it 100%, or not-for-profit organizations. That's where the compassionate capitalism comes in. We don't need these buildings, we don't want them. We just want to keep producing them because we know the dire need is out there. And frankly, we can keep doing what we do best. And we've got an agreement in principle with a national property management company who will head lease the buildings. So that takes the risk away from the faith-based communities, etc.
And so when you say you turn it over, do you sell it to them or you just give it to them or what?
We build it on their land. So, it's not a sale, that triggers, HST and all the rest of it. We build it on their land and then you give it back to them. Give the land back, with the building on it, a stabilized building on it.
But who pays for the construction cost of the building?
We do. We bring 100% of the cost to the table. And right now, the flavor of the month is MLI Select, the CMHC program. And depending on the income, that construction loan is up to 90%, and we put in the other 10% equity. So that constitutes the 100%. So the faith-based charity or whatever doesn't have to put in, the cost of the project. And then when it's built and stabilized, we turn it back to them at the current cap rates, that a REIT would pay for the building, but we don't take the profit out. We leave it on title as a second mortgage at zero interest and zero principal. We don't take the profit or our equity back out. And then we leverage that to create the equity for the next Joy project, and on and on and on.
So you put in 10% of the equity. So if a building costs what, $100 million to
50.
$50 million. So you're putting in 5 and CMHC is putting in 45. And when you reach stabilization, you're going to give it to the faith-based community. And I presume they've got then the debt, the CMHC debt. So they've got this thing that's worth $50 million with $45 million worth of debt against it. That's going to get paid off over time by way of the rents.
Right.
And you're not getting paid your $5 million.
Well, we defer it for 10 years, as the second mortgage at zero interest. We got our normal development fees. And as I always say, how many pairs of shoes do you need? This is where the compassionate capitalism come in. Honestly, I've been there with the millions going through us and all the rest of it. I don't need it. It's that simple. There's no hidden agenda or anything here.
Okay, so you defer it. You defer it over 10 years at no interest, and then you said somehow you leverage it to get the next investment.
Yeah, we just borrow against our mortgage up to a maximum of 50%. So if we say the mortgage,
so you borrow against the 5, you borrow 2.5.
Exactly. And that gets the next Joy building, off and running with pre-development, everything that has to be, and top up the equity if it has to be.
Okay, and so the development fees, typical development fees are what, 4 or 5%?
Yeah, thereabouts.
And so you are earning some income, though you've got a bunch of expenses associated with that, but you're earning some income.
Right. Yeah, and all the consultants and trades and everything are all part of the construction loan, the same as any development.
Yeah. Fascinating. And I guess one of the big benefits of your projects is that you're not having to pay for the land. And so that's taking what, about 20-30% of the typical cost of getting a project going off of your pro forma. You don't have to do that. And so therefore you're getting the land for free because you're going to give it back to the faith-based community in a couple of years.
That's exactly right. Good. That's good.
Sounds like an interesting strategy. And how well has this worked? How many developments have you done?
Well, it's nothing, we were going to introduce it just before COVID. Okay, let me just back up a sec. The catalyst was my brother, who was in charge of the on-site construction. He was, older than me. And he had to have a quadruple bypass, and his wife and doctor said, he really needs to be in a retirement home, and his mind was as clear as a bell. But he was stuck in a hospital for 9 months, and I couldn't figure out why. But he finally got a bed in Brantford, and I visited him every week. And when I went in at the front door, there was all these seniors, the gauntlet, chairs, wheelchairs, looking at the floor. Left an hour later, same senior, same floor. It lasted about 12 months, and the day I left there, I'm a Christian, so, I said, God, you blessed me with over 50 years in this business. I'm going to do something about it with your help. And then just put pen to paper and all the rest of it. And what I call the joy concept, because we want to try and instill real joy into, people that are 55 and over.
And so do you have, activity centers or community centers or what is it? How do you fill these places with joy?
Okay. Here's one of the best parts. The CMHC loans any of the CMHC programs allow up to 30% of non-residential uses in the loan and the GFA. Well, we include in the Joy model about a 20,000 square foot community hub that can act as space for the faith-based community. But the bigger reason is the outreach to the community for food banks, et cetera, we've got a list of about 40 items that can be done out of these community hubs. And again, the rents that come in, the original construction loan and everything pays the capital cost of that amenity space, community hub. And then the mortgage, the permanent mortgage covered by the rents and everything, pays for the operation of it. So it just basically pays for itself and the rents cover it.
And this is a community hub that does what?
Well, again, not only handles whatever the faith-based communities want to use it for, because we design it to have up to 750 seats and classrooms and all of the areas for having events. Because that's part of the problem with a lot of the churches getting demolished. There is no place for the local communities to hold what it is they want. Well, this services that, and incidentally, just to, complete the answer to your question, when COVID happened, I pulled it back because there was no way I was going to release it to the market when people were dying in retirement homes and nursing homes. But as soon as COVID was over, we released it, and in 12 months, we had these 10 contracts. But whenever anybody asks that question, I point to our project in Brampton. It was the first and largest adult lifestyle community in GTA, 700 condos, 160 bed long-term care, church, and some retail. We did that entire thing on church land, and I wouldn't do that model again because all those 700 buyers have quadrupled the value of the condos they bought, and the church got their church, etc. But the new Joy model, it's all rental in the faith-based zones at 100%.
And you said it includes a boutique hotel as well?
Well, it's not a hotel. It's just the ambience of a hotel. We furnish 40%. 40% of the project falls under CMHC's affordable guidelines. And those come furnished like an independent living building. And we've done 3 5-star hotels. So we know how to furnish these things inexpensively.
Where would one of these facilities be? Anyone close to Toronto?
No, I'm staying away from GTA right now till they frankly get their act together with this whole approval delays and everything. It's horrible. So 3 of them are in Ottawa, one in Charlottetown, PEI, one in St. John, Newfoundland, in Belleville. And each of these sites have got like 2 9-story Joy buildings, so that's like 400 units per site.
Sounds like a fascinating proposal and development plan. I appreciate you sharing it with us. Some people think that the answer to social housing is that the government's got to give free land or contribute land into the mix. It sounds like that's sort of part of the success of yours.
It is
that you've got the free land from the faith-based communities.
It is, but I prefer to stay away from bureaucracy as much as possible because you have to go through as I say, the Gordian knot of the planning approvals, and we've done it, but it's we can produce much faster for municipalities that actually want this stuff.
We're going to take a break for some messages and come back in just 2 minutes with our guest, Ian Jones, and talk a little bit about this approval disaster that he's been talking about, because it sounds like it's sort of associated with the condo challenge that we started out the conversation with. Stay with us, everybody. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Ian Jones. He's the president and founder of the BGI Group. He's developed over 23 million square feet of real estate and over $9 billion worth of development. And now he says he's focused on really on not-for-profit development and affordable housing development in ventures with partnerships with faith-based communities that contribute the land. And what he does is he builds the building and gets the financing to finance the building and takes it to stabilization, which will pay off the debt over time. And he defers his equity return for 10 years with no interest. Sounds like a fascinating model. You talk, though, about how you stay away from the GTA because the city approval process, the zoning approval process, is a disaster. Tell me a little bit about that, Ian, if you could, sir.
Sure. Thanks, Brian. Okay, well, before the province's Bill 23, it was bad enough. Like it was still 3 or 4 years to get through a zoning amendment, which you nearly always have to do to get a reasonable sized project to make the construction numbers work. But Bill 23, when the province brought that out, that was to simplify things. But the planning department's actually turned it on its head. And instead of one pre-consultation that you used to have to go through, you now have to go through two. It's a two-stage, and you have to do all of the, and every project, reasonable size project, has at least 20 consultant reports that are circulated around 30 regulatory agencies, and they're peer reviewed, and all of that is dumped on the applicant, which it should be. But the way that they've structured it is specifically to avoid the penalties that the province brought this out for. So they've complicated the process further, in my opinion. And there isn't always the guarantee that you're going to get these approvals. So like you can be looking at $500,000 to $1 million in in a reasonable sized project to get right through the process in 3 to 4 years. Now, I understand that they've supposedly shaved 7 months off of that. I haven't got the details, but we're in I won't say specifically where, but we're in an area where instead of all of that, it's 8 consultant reports. So obviously we'll get through there in about 12 months instead of 30, 60, 48 months. And especially, they should have a fast track system for at least purpose-built affordable rentals. Look at that separately, from all of the condo projects. And they're not getting any condo projects now because there's 75 on the shelf for the indefinite future. So it really is a horrible process to go through to get the. I don't have any problem with the building department. It's as long as your drawings and specs are complete, you'll get your building permit. But the first thing the building department asks is, have you got site plan approval? And that's the 3 or 4 years planning process.
You quoted an article on LinkedIn recently. I'd like to read your quote, if I could. It's all politics, says Bray, who recently wrote an article for Stories on this exact topic. Governments don't care about solving the housing crisis. There's zero evidence of any intent. They've basically surrendered to NIMBYism at the provincial level, and they've 100% surrendered to NIMBYism at the municipal level. And because of that, we're not going to get the densities we need. The red tape isn't being cut. The province actually walked back on the freezing of DCs. In essence, all hell has been released. We're in a housing crisis and we're going nowhere. We might even be going backwards. Do you really believe that, sir?
Yes, I do. That's Marlon Bray, and he's quite colourful. He used to be with Altus, but he's always accurate. And like I know him, and basically what he's saying is just what I've rhymed off. We're in the weeds of it every day, and that's why I've said enough of this in the GTA. We're going to produce these joy projects where they actually want them and can process approval so we can get them built. So yeah, I totally agree. Maybe not in the same words, but It's the NIMBYs that are driving it, either behind the scenes and in front of council meetings and all the rest of it. And NIMBYs are votes, so the councils want to stay in power. It's votes.
So what needs to happen?
Well, you have to try and mold the system within the current system to try and improve it. And I'll just mention this one thing. When the city gives site plan approval, they always require a security letter of credit for site services and landscaping. And the main reason for that is if the developer goes bankrupt, the city cashes in the LCs and finishes the project for the people that are moving in. So, they've got that system in place. So if the planning department knows at least 10 of the reports that they're going to require through this pre-consult process. So if they had a policy and say, it doesn't matter what you walk in the doorway, you're going to have to do these 10, then the developers can get them done ahead of the time, and then basically, if they come in and the planning department says, okay, we see what you've done, and we're going to require a letter of credit of $5 million, and we'll give you your permit in 6 months, not 3 years, then basically what happens, the city will have the security, the same as the landscaping, etc. And the building inspector inspects the building every week. So if he sees that they're not being built, something is not being built according to those reports, the city can ding the LC by $500,000. That'll happen once. Developers, if they're going to lose money from their letter of credit. So when you really talk about that and look at it, if that can be encapsulated to issue a permit in 6 months, but the cities get $5 or $10 million worth of security, because that's what they're worried about. That's why all the reports, because of all of the potential liability. How many buildings have collapsed in Toronto in the last 50 years? None.
Stats Canada and CMHC did a report that said that the approval time periods in Canada are the slowest in the Western world. Do you believe that?
Of course I believe it. Yeah, California might be a close second, but no, I definitely believe it.
There's also been reports done by Build and other organizations that have said that 30% of the cost of housing today is taxes. And a lot of that money is paid up front. And the typical development profit is 15%. You're not for profit, so you're less than that, but 15%. And that's paid at the end, if at all. Is that kind of taxation fair?
No, it's not fair. And I must say, I actually feel sorry for Richard Lyle of Rescon, because he's forever banging about the 31%, but nothing changes. As a matter of fact, they keep getting worse. They just introduced another one called the phosphorus report. Phosphorus seemingly is in everything. Who knew? So that's another report that they're adding.
I think we've got a real issue here, and people have talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, but governments, particularly municipal governments, don't seem to be doing anything about it. If anything, they're going the opposite direction and increasing development fees even more. Ian had another post that I'm going to close with here. He said, "No surprise here. There will be a bloodbath at the bottom of this cliff. The real question is how much of a tsunami and buyer defaults are coming. If big enough, it will drag down weaker developers into receivership, and that's what I'm guessing the REITs and pension funds will pick them up and turn them into rentals. If mid-sized developers lose their projects due to buyers not closing, I also believe those developers will sue all those buyers since it will be easy to prove that it was those defaulting closings as the prime evidence causing those developers to lose their projects. Those pre-sale investors who bought multiple units using a personable HELOC, home equity line of credit, on their family home better watch out for a little gem."
Called list pendants.
Pretty negative scenario you're looking at.
It is, and as a developer, I am an optimist, but I'm also a realist, and I've never seen it this bad.
You've never seen it this bad?
No, even in the 90s, and watch the US meltdown, so.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to give you my assessment of some of the things that need to desperately be done right away to ensure that we solve the housing crisis that we're in. And I think it's improved timeframes of approval, and I think it's far lower taxes and development fees. And it may be that simple. I'm going to make some other suggestions, but it may just be that simple. Ian Jones, thank you so much for joining us.
No, you're more than welcome. Thank you, Brian.
In 2 minutes, I'm back with my own recipe for what we need to do. Stay with us, everybody.